Hey all, this is Sarah Ness coming at you from the front of a plant in Austin, Texas. I wanted to talk about some thoughts I've been having lately about the so-called loneliness epidemic. And the loneliness epidemic has been this catchphrase recently, at least in my field, that as people have done more studies on loneliness, they've found that it has a ton of health effects as well as psychological effects. Like some studies show that being lonely is on the same realm as smoking a pack of cigarettes a day. Britain's announced a minister for loneliness. And then, of course, like there's a lot of signs that the number of confidants that Americans have and people in other countries have been dropping in the last couple decades. There's this idea of like we are the loneliest generation. And the reason that people seem to care about this is that there's a lot of negative effects of it. And supposedly, loneliness is cured by connection. A lot of my work for the last decade has been bringing people together in houses, in different practices and communities to practice better connection. And as I've been doing this, despite seeing really wonderful effects from it, people forming lifelong friendships, forming inner groups that are supporting them in times of crisis like the current one, I also felt like I've been noticing something missing, which is if we think of loneliness as an actual epidemic, which is caused by a disease, then there should be a cure to that disease, right? If you get connection, it should be preventative of loneliness or curative of loneliness. But for whatever reason, connection kind of acts more like a drug than it does like a cure. When I get a hit of connection, I want more. I crave it. It's harder for me to be without it. But then there are moments when I don't feel that kind of emptiness that I'm terming loneliness. And I started thinking about like, if connection isn't curative of loneliness, either it could be that there's something else curative of loneliness, or connection is tapping into something that I'm calling loneliness that's really something else. And what I'm thinking is maybe we don't have an epidemic of loneliness, we have an epidemic of purpose. Because when I'm connected, I'm tapped into something that's beyond just me. There's an us, there's a group, there's a sense of fulfillment to something in me that feels longing or lacking. And one possibility is just to kind of meditate through this until it goes away. But that seems hard for a lot of people. And I think it's because there really is a need here that's not being met. And it's something like connection to a greater whole that connection represents, but isn't the whole of. Because the other time that I feel this longing fade away is when I feel like on point in my life, when I feel like something matters to me. And we think about purpose a lot in terms of work, like what's your mission? What's your 5-year goal? What's your purpose for being? And that's well and good, but that's not all of me. That's like the purpose of my work self. So what's the purpose of me? It used to be this purpose was defined by things like religion or family. Like my purpose is to be a good daughter, to be a good wife, to be a good student. Or, my purpose is to be a good servant of my God. And now that those things are gone, Martin Seligman called this the disappearance of the comfortable spiritual furniture that we used to rest on, that our grandparents' generation rested on. There's not an overlaid purpose, and there's also not really tools to figure that out from underneath. So we're in this limbo where we know we need something, and it seems to be represented by something almost like a soul hunger, but aside from connection, we can't figure out how to get it. And when we do get it, it's fleeting and it hurts even more when it's gone. So I don't have an answer to this, but as I've been exploring it and trying out different practices, I've come to some ideas. One of them is taken from my friends Human Systems. And they talk about there being, they're really interested in values. And they talk about there being different types of values. And the fact that when we get taught values, we put it all into one big category. Like, I care about connection. But that actually values exist in a couple categories. One is like goals and fears. So I care about connection so that I can feel less lonely. Or meeting or setting expectations. I care about connection because I want everybody in the world to experience connection, so I should care about it too. Or I feel like I should care about connection, so I'm caring about it. Or other people think I'm the queen of connection, so I have to care about it. But there's a difference between that and intrinsic values, which is like, even if nobody was watching and it didn't matter to anybody, what would I care about? And for me, the question is like, what is it that when I'm doing it, I don't feel that hunger and it lasts? Not just for the moment, but I can sit in it for a while and I feel filled up by it. It's not just the sense I get from answering my emails and feeling complete, but for me, it's something I thought for a long time was creating community. It's like, wow, I'm so lit up by this. I love the feeling of connection and I love the feeling of like making this and seeing it happen. But why is it that I'm not reaching out to the community once I've created it and I really hate maintaining it? What's going on there? And when I started looking deeper, I found that like, I love creating. When I'm in the act of creation, I feel fulfilled. When I haven't created for a while, I feel empty. But it's almost like it's an intrinsic good. It's kind of like meditation. Like it fills me up in the moment, but it also has long-term effects. But it's not like eating a piece of chocolate cake where I instantly feel it hit my stomach. I'm like, oh yeah, that. Creation takes some work. And I somehow forget that it's necessary. But then when I don't do it, I feel hungry in the same way that I feel like soul hungry if I don't exercise for long enough. Because that's another one for me, is using my body is a source of deep fulfillment and purpose. So I'm an embodied being. I'm a creative being. I'm a creator. And then it seems like there's something in this web of wider things that I'm tied into as well. So like those are my identities, but what else matters to me? Who else matters to me? I get purpose in serving, but who? And this is another piece that I want to name, is like one of the reasons I think finding purpose is so hard these days is because of a lack of devotion. We're taught to question everything. And we get choice paralysis. Like, okay, I can choose my family. I can live with whoever I want to. Who do I want to live with? I can be friends with whoever I want. Who do I want to be friends with? What work do I want to do? What food do I want to eat? There are so many choices all the time. And we're taught to always rethink, is this the right thing? Is this the right thing? Is this what I want? And there's absolutely value in that, but there's also madness in that. And I think there's beauty in a way in this whole epidemic that we're in right now, like literal physical epidemic, where we're being forced to limit our number of choices and think about, what is it that brings us joy and solves that hunger? Because in this, I see some people lonelier than ever, and I see some people less lonely, and for some reason, it's the same people that it was before. COVID hasn't exacerbated something. It's just waking us up to something that maybe we should have seen a long time ago. It's not a loneliness epidemic. It's an epidemic of connection to anything greater than our moment-to-moment selves.